jump in. Again, rookie wide receivers that we expect to make an immediate impact in 2023. I'm going first, and that is Quentin Johnston, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers. Jacob, I don't know if I can say this on air because I think you're a closeted San Diego Chargers fan.
Not anymore.
Okay, there we go.
Well, you just said it on air.
Anyways, Quentin Johnston, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers. Listen, before I get into why I think he's going to have such a huge impact in his rookie year, I will share a little bit of a personal narrative here. And that is we, Jacob and I, had a rookie draft just this past weekend in which I had the 106. And the way that it shook out is that JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba of the Seattle Seahawks, and Quentin Johnston were right there for my taking. Now, obviously, I'm talking about Quentin Johnston today because I think he's going to make an immediate impact in 2023. I ended up going with Jackson Smith and Jigba. I can't tell you my reasonings just yet, but I think it's going to play itself out here over the course of why I'm explaining why I think Quentin Johnston is going to make an impact. And first and foremost, I think we need to acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is Kellen Moore, the new offensive coordinator in Los Angeles. Haters out there are going to say, well, listen, the Dallas Cowboys did not throw the ball a ton, but Kellen Moore didn't exactly have a complete hold over that offense. He finds himself in Los Angeles now where I think that's going to be all he has to control. It's going to be complete control for Kellen Moore in that offense. It's going to be a more free-range offense, an offense that takes shots downfield. I think Herbert, who we both acknowledge did not live up to his hype last year. He had a down year in all aspects of the game. But he's also one of the few players in all of football and all of fantasy football that when he has a down year, we're not like batting an eye about it. He's still a top 5 dynasty quarterback. He's still a top 4 dynasty QB. You know, he's just a great quarterback for fantasy in the NFL in general. So I'm not too worried about that. And also, I think he throws a much better deep ball than Dak Prescott did, which is why I have Justin Herbert, of course, ranked over Dak Prescott. Now, listen, specifically referring to Quentin Johnston, I don't think he's going to come out of the gates right away. So technically it's like clickbait, right? Because I'm looking for a rookie who makes immediate impact. However, if we're talking about a boomer bust flex play, he is somebody that should definitely be in your roster week 1 right out the gate, because I think that's exactly what he's going to be able to provide for you out of the gate. Boomer bust flex play. The guy is a deep threat machine. He's going to get targets downfield. And if you've seen his highlights, and this is what I said about someone else, and A.T. Perry, another guy that I really like, who was drafted 6 rounds later. But I just don't get it. So many people talk about, oh, well, these guys played in unique offenses in college, and who knows if it's going to replicate at the next level. It's like, if a guy is talented and he can make plays, he's going to make plays if he's given the opportunity in the NFL. Quentin Johnston is going to see the opportunity in the NFL. I expect him to get 5 to 6 targets right out of the gate, and boomer bust, right? If one of those is a 45-yard bomb and a touchdown, that's immediate value for your fantasy team. And we also have to acknowledge that he plays with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, 2 guys that are What did I say wrong?
No, you're right. I'm just saying, like, we know how it goes with those guys. Like,
we just know how it goes.
At one point last year, Joshua Palmer was their wide receiver 1 for a couple weeks. Like, the
only available target on a team of guys that were once great. Mike Williams never really
to happen again.
You know what? We don't condone talking about injuries here on the podcast.
Of course not.
But we also don't shy away from the fact that they do happen. And unfortunately, some of these guys, especially Keenan Allen, as he gets up there in age 31, which, hey, we're a bunch of 30-year-old guys talking about a 31-year-old wide receiver.
Yeah, but we're not professional athletes.
But we're not professional athletes, okay? So that's why we can say it. But regardless, with those 2 guys often injured, we could see Quentin Johnston jump into a role immediately where he is getting 8 to 10 targets a game. That's up 4 targets from what I was just talking about. So I really do think the sky is the limit for this guy. He's going to play in one of the pass happiest offenses in the league. And a guy that I really follow a lot, Tommy Garrett of Pro Football Focus, he said this: Los Angeles has consistently thrown an average of 39 passes per game, where the Dallas Cowboys only averaged about 31 passes per game last season. He still thinks Los Angeles is going to remain, if not one of the most pass-happiest offenses in the league, which means Johnston should be playing on a team where he is the wide receiver 3 at least a majority of the time, and he should be seeing quite a few targets in that position. And we're talking about it here, whereas Mike Williams and Keenan Allen miss time, there's the potential for a lot more volume there for Quentin Johnston. So for those reasons, and Jacob will also hear from you, is why I believe Quentin Johnston is going to make an impact in his first year with the Los Angeles Chargers. And to back it all the way up, the reason why I took JSN in that rookie draft is because I do believe he's the better talent overall. But we've seen it time and time again in fantasy football where opportunity matters more than talent. And I think Quentin Johnston is going to have an opportunity to see more volume early on. JSN is a great player, which is why I took him. But Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are still there. I think Seattle's going to run the ball an absolute ton, especially after drafting Zach Charbonnet. So he's more of a piece that I think will progress later on into his career, whereas I think Quentin Johnston is a guy who's going to make impact on your team right away. And if you've all seen my dynasty team, it doesn't look like it's going to do anything right away. So another reason why I took JSN. Jacob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way you're comparing him to JSN is perfect because they both have 2 veteran wide receivers in front of them. But the difference is the Seattle wide receivers never injured, always play, very consistent. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be in JSN's way at least this season, at least Tyler Lockett, right? It's like DK Metcalf's not going anywhere. But the thing is, JSN and DK aren't going to, they're not going to run the same routes. So, like, once Lockett starts to age out and move on, whatever, JSN is going to step up and have a huge role. Hopefully they can figure out the quarterback position past Geno. And, hey, Pete Carroll did it already, so I'm sure he could do it again. But with Quentin Johnston, it's like, yes, I'm a secret Chargers fan, but even just removing that bias, first, let me just say, how many dynasty leagues I'm in, right? I do not have Quentin Johnston.
Too many, Jacob, too many.
I don't have Quentin Johnston in any league. And it's really like, I'm trying to act like it's not that big of a deal, on the surface, but it's really eating me alive inside. So, hey, we have a dynasty rookie draft coming up on Apex, right? And I have the 107. Sure, so fingers crossed that I could get him in that league. But I love what you're saying because look, I don't want Mike Williams and Keenan Allen to get injured. I'm probably going to draft them in a league or two at some redraft leagues, and I want them to succeed. And, Keenan Allen, the master of consistency when he's healthy. Mike Williams, really high boom level, high bust level, but it's like they both have been relevant, very relevant at times, but they both have been injury prone in different ways. Like Keenan Allen gets hurt and he's out for a while. Mike Williams, any given game, he could leave. He's like, remember Julio Jones back in the day when it's like you'd be watching a Falcons game. It's like, where's Julio? Like, what? He's gone. It's like Mike Williams can leave any game at any time because he dives for the ball like he's like jumping off a cliff or something. Like, so it's just, there's a lot. The pathway to playing time is there for Quentin Johnston, more so than a lot of these rookie wide receivers, I would say. And the thing is, when you add in elements of playing with Justin Herbert, Kellen Moore there, it's great. And, speaking of the Chargers things, like, I got to be careful because I was wearing my Chargers hat around town. Like, I had at least 3 people be like, we're going to kill it this year. Or like a Cowboys fan be like, oh, you took Kellen Moore from us. And I'm like, hold on. And I can't say I'm not a Chargers fan because then they're going to be like, why are you wearing the Chargers hat then? So I just got to play along with it like I am one. So it's been an interesting experiment. But no, I love the pick. When we made the plan for the show, you chose him. I probably would have chosen him if you didn't choose him.
Great. That was my next question. to end the Quentin Johnston portion of this show before we take off to our next player, let's rank the 3 highly, touted rookie wide receivers in this class, and JSN, Quentin Johnston, and Jordan Addison. For fantasy purposes this year, how would you rank them in their performance of how you think they will finish? One being, of course, the best fantasy performance, and third being the worst fantasy performance this year. If I had to put a finger on it, I think I'm going Quentin Johnston 1, Jordan Addison 2, JSN 3. I think, like you said, and like you had mentioned in your previous statement, Quentin Johnston is primed for a role where he can have an immediate impact. That's why we're talking about him right now. Jordan Addison is another player who could easily take over the wide receiver 2 position on his team, and he plays in a pretty good offense in a division that's rebuilding, and they're going to see all those teams multiple times. So I think there's a real shot that both of them can have a major fantasy impact, whereas JSN, he's probably going to be in the slot to start. That team's going to run the ball 25 times a game. DK Metcalf and Lockett, like you said, they run different routes, but they're going to be on the outside. I don't see it there right away happening for JSN, whereas I think Quentin Johnston and Jordan Addison have a little bit more impact. So how would you rank them?
All right. So, a little bit of bias here because Jordan Addison did fall to me at the 110 in our recent.
Well, we made a trade.
Yeah, but ultimately I got him at the 110, but which was a great, because a couple of people reached for like 2 or 3 players in that draft, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to trade for this 110 spot. But yeah, so it's really tough. I almost agree with your order. And we're just talking about this season, right? If we're talking
rookies who make an immediate impact, Jake. Immediate impact.
But I think I'm gonna go Addison, Quentin Johnston, JSN, because it's not just because I roster him. Trust me, I want Quentin Johnston to succeed. We're just assuming that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are going to get injured. Jordan Addison is automatically the number 2, right next to Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is going to get the premium coverage. Addison's going to be left open, and Kirk Cousins can sling it. So I think Addison is set up to, like, week 1 possibly have an impact. Quentin Johnston could take him a few weeks, if at all.
Fair enough.
So Addison, Johnston, and Smith and Jigba.
There you go. Wasn't the answer I was looking for, but that's where we have to disagree sometimes, Jacob. We can't just always agree on everything, okay?
But I think there's one other guy that has something to say about that.
Oh, I like your little segue there. Well, that was it for Quentin Johnston, wide receiver of the Los Angeles Chargers.